Hi, my name is Ty. I'm the paranormal investigator and founder of Night Vision Paranormal Australia crew. I've been doing paranormal now for about 5 or so years now. And in my experience, I've experienced a lot of figures, disembodied voices, voices galore on the spirit box. I grew up in a haunted house in Brisbane, and now I currently conduct all of my paranormal investigation, research, documentation and findings on the Sunshine Coast.
Welcome to Mistery, a podcast about ghosts. I'm Agnes.Finnie. I'm here with Pete. Hi, Pete.
Good evening.
We're sitting in a cupboard tonight, which is our new found podcasting studio.
It's soundproofed.
It's soundproofed. One of our listeners suggested that we were a bit too echoey last time. So, yeah, they did. But, you know, we take on the feedback and we work constructively with it, don't we?
There may have been some other sound issues that have maybe contributed to that might have been rectified for this edition.
Pete's not only a burgeoning paranormal expert, he's also my tech sound crew and realised I hadn't been using the microphones properly.
Yeah, when it suits.
Anyway, let's stay on message as always.
Mm-hmm.
It's with great glee that I announce the first in what I think will be multiple episodes of an investigation that we are going to conduct, along with Ty, who you've just heard in the intro, at the Majestic Theatre in Pomona. So tonight's episode is really an introduction to Ty, the work that he does, the equipment that is used in a paranormal investigation, which I have been so curious about. We also have a new segment, which is listener stories. I went on the ABC a few weeks ago and I've had a grand total of 2 responses. So why are you shaking your head?
It's 2 more than you had before.
Yeah, okay. Is that why you're shaking your head?
Yeah. Think about it positively.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm just going to play you a little bit more about Ty because he's going to tell you what we're going to be doing in this investigation. You don't really know, do you?
Yeah, and I think you're a bit wrong in the intro. I am not conducting any sort of paranormal investigation.
No, you are going to be...
I am a passenger.
You've agreed to be on a team.
Sure.
Okay, so It's you, me, Ty, and Richard, our psychic friend of the podcast from the last episode.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes.
So, hold tight.
Basically, how the investigation is going to work with the Majestic Theatre, aka shout out to Alison. Alison is the manager or the president of the Majestic Theatre at Pomona. I'm going to rock up to the theatre maybe half an hour earlier, just to finalise a few things and get equipment checks and make sure we're all good for the night. Because I'm pretty sure they lock us in, and then there's a special door that we use to get out once we're done, which is unlocked from the inside but locked on the outside. So, so basically, we'll go into the green room first, where we're going to set up an additional camera on that curtain that I told you about that is known to open and close on its own without anyone doing it, or any air or anything. So we'll set up an additional camera there, and while we're in there, we'll do a little bit of a EVP session, which is basically the voice recording session. And after that, we'll do a brief spirit box session in there, just for maybe, 10-15 minutes to see what we get. After that, we'll head up to the top projector room and we'll get Pete set up on his Estes communication method. Sorry, Pete. But yeah, we'll get him set up on there, up in the top projector room. Yeah, he'll have a blindfold on and he'll have headphones connected to the spirit box and he'll be listening to the spirit box. Yeah, we'll just be seated outside the room and the room is going to be dimly lit, but we'll have a camera set up on Pete and all that while we're downstairs asking questions, and Pete will not know what we're asking. It's called an Estes session or a sensory deprivation session. We'll have him set up in there for maybe half an hour just to see what we get. And then after Pete's done, I might volunteer to do one myself, and then that'll probably be another half an hour. And then after that, we'll just head into the center of the theater and we'll set up a few pieces of equipment and we'll do another few spirit box sessions and voice recording sessions. And then after that, when it's closer to the end of the investigation, when we've got like 10 or 5 minutes left, I like to do what we call a blackout. We shut all lights out in the theater. One of us will sit alone, alone in one part of the room. Or in one room. It's basically just going to be like 10 or 5 minutes of silence. If you want to ask a question like silently, you're allowed to, and then we'll just have the camera set up on each one of us, and we'll just see if we get anything. We'll pack up. We'll thank the spirits for their time and their communication with us. Yeah, and when we get inside the place, we want to let the spirits know that we mean no harm, all this sort of stuff, and we only come with good intentions and with peace, love, respect, and communication.
All right, so this is a little bit of a Pete responds moment. So the Majestic Theatre, I mean, you've seen it before because we've been to Pomona before, obviously. Mm-hmm. It was built in 1922, and it's one of the only pre-war theatres still in operation in Australia.
Okay.
You don't care. You're just like, whatever.
Well, it's not that I don't care, but I mean, we've established that, are we in the camp of it matters, the location matters? Do the spirits inhabit a location? Do the paranormal inhabit a location? Are they everywhere? Do they float? Does it have to be, does it have to have a trauma at the thing? No, was there any deaths at the cinemas?
All of this sort of context.
Thing. I understand.
I'm just giving some context.
I understand. But for me, it's like, why do they only come out at night?
Well,
all that,
Sure. I mean, obviously it's quote unquote creepier at night.
Sure.
Ty has suggested to me strongly that there's more activity in his experience at night. He's done investigations there before. Mm-hmm. So the main piece of law I understand around the theatre is that there was a former owner, mm-hmm. And his wife actually passed away while they owned it.
Okay.
And he has spoken on the record saying that she is still in residence there.
Right, okay.
Okay. Friendly, lovely.
Sure.
There have been reports, like Ty mentioned on the thing of, curtains moving,
yeah.
Footsteps,
yep.
Lights going on and off, mm-hmm. people being touched, and particularly in that room where we are talking about setting you up
yeah, okay.
with this thing called the Estes communication method. It sounds like we actually have poltergeist activity going on, but I think it's just the kid getting ready for bed. I guess because you're the resident skeptic, that's fallen on you. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, that's fine. I'd have questions about the box or whatever.
Okay. All right.
Like he's hooking me up with earphones into the box, right? Or is it a Wi-Fi to the box?
He's going to tell us more about that.
He's going to tell us more about that?
Yeah.
Alrighty, so for the equipment-wise, first off we have a standard voice recorder. These can come in devices or you can use them on your phone. So basically how the voice recorder works is we stand in a room with dead silence so you can hear a pin drop. One of us will ask a question, we'll wait about 10, maybe 15 seconds to see if we get anything in that gap. And then the next person will ask a question, they'll wait like another 20 seconds, and then the next question, and so on. So that's one method of communication. The next one we have is the spirit box. Now, spirit box is a radio with a snipped wire inside of it, and it's constantly scanning through multiple radio stations and frequencies. So it's not stopping on one specific channel. It's like running through every channel, over 100 channels and 100 news stations and all this. And you can use the frequency as AM or FM, and you can sweep in reverse or forwards. Yeah, personally, I've seen that it does actually work, and you do get pretty good responses to some of your questions. The next thing that I want to talk about is a K2 meter. The K2 meter is what electricians use. You see that black box with all the lights on the top? People say, you wave it around and, ghosts are going to, touch it and all this stuff. Yes, but sometimes that's not true. K2 meters are pretty much used for picking up electromagnetic fields in the room. So it's not 100% concrete evidence that that is a spirit, but if we leave it on like somewhere where there's no electrical outlets or, no electrical power or anything, something fluctuates on it, then yes, potentially it could be a spirit. But again, it's not solid concrete evidence. So take everything you see with that with a grain of salt, right? The next thing I'll talk about is cat balls. Basically what it says it is, it's a cat ball, pretty much a cat ball toy. They can also be used in paranormal research. So basically we'll leave these balls sitting on a table or the floor or a chair or something. And then we can ask the spirit, like, okay, can you please touch this cat ball if your name is Fred, for instance. So, if your name is Fred, can you please touch the cat ball to, give us confirmation? And then, if it doesn't, then obviously his name's not Fred. But yeah, we'll give it, simple questions like, if you're there, can you please touch that cat ball just to confirm that you're here? What the spirit will just do is just, I think, tap it or touch it very lightly, and it will light up for at least maybe 60 seconds. It's pretty much a motion sensor detector. Yeah, that's the cat ball. The next thing I want to talk about is, you've probably seen it on a lot of like ghost hunting shows or TV or, YouTube channels. It's a REM pod. Basically, a REM pod is a black, circular device with a red top on it, and it's got an antenna on it. The REM pod is lets us know about temperature fluctuations and changes in the environment, changes in movement, all this sort of stuff, changes in air. Every time something will get closer to the REM pod or to the antenna, then it will fluctuate a sound. And the closer something goes to the REM pod, the higher pitch it is. And moths and flies cannot set this off. So I've tried it multiple times on investigations where moths have flown past it and nothing's happened. So yeah, moths cannot detect that. And basically you can run your hand along the antenna, and then if you run your hand so close to it, it'll go and yeah, it's it's intense.
Okay, so as I understand it, apart from a whole bunch of cameras, recording equipment, there'll also be this sort of specialist equipment. I saw you looking pretty confused about the spirit box.
A cat ball. Specialist equipment.
Specialist cat ball. Yeah, yeah.
The box.
The spirit box. Did that make sense?
Oh, look, the chances of you crossing a radio station that's doing a broadcast that answers your particular question at that point or whatever is pretty
exactly
low.
That's the theory. So yeah,
I'll be interested to see how that one works.
Yeah, so exactly, it provides this electronic or radio noise that an intelligence might supposedly manipulate into speech, so it grabs fragments. When you were just talking there, it reminded me a little bit of Richard's story, actually. Although that was maybe because he spoke about AM, FM, that wasn't to do with it, but there was this sort of intelligent feedback
modulation
loop.
Of a signal or something like that. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got all of this sort of atmospheric tests, I suppose, that are picked up by this REM pod, which is, I guess, like a one machine that does a lot of different things.
But what's the theory with that? Is that are spirits colder?
So the idea, a lot of people say that when there's spirit presence there, the temperature will drop dramatically. So yeah, instead of having a thermometer there and a separate thing to test drafts or something like that, this machine supposedly does all of that for you. Mm-hmm. The thing that I find really interesting, and this goes back to some of the stuff that you and I have been talking about, we've been trying to talk about what a ghost is, goes to kind of product design with this kind of stuff. If we actually don't know exactly what a spirit is or a ghost is, how can you possibly design anything that's going to make any kind of...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The history of it's super interesting, though, because there seem to be these kind of conflated ideas. There was this Canadian neuroscientist called Michael Persinger, and this is sort of from the 1980s onwards, and he did a range of experiments where he put people in situations where they had weak magnetic fields applied to their temporal lobes. So I think he put a lot of stuff around their head. And in some cases, they experienced what they said was a sensed presence. So actually applying a magnetic field to their body in certain areas of their body, they felt like there was someone nearby, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like that, or some of that theory seems to have kind of been adopted and almost flipped to kind of go, well, then spirits themselves can produce or manipulate electromagnetic fields. And I feel like there's also this thing of, because we often discuss spirits in terms of some amorphous idea of energy, even though we don't really know what that could be, we assume that there's this energetic interruption that spirits can somehow affect. And I think that's where some of this technology has kind of been adopted.
I want someone to give me a working hypothesis on what they believe it is.
I just don't think there is one. A single working hypothesis.
But even a theory, even with like the most way out stuff, right?
Yeah.
Say UFOs, right? There's at least working hypotheses around, no, we're too far away, they can't get to us because of as soon as you go close to light, time slows down and dilates and da-da-da-da and go and watch Interstellar and all of that sort of stuff. So it can't be that, which means we need a new physics, which means we need to be able to bend time or blah, 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 or bend the universe and da-da-da, and that's how they could get here. But if they can't do that, then there's this other thing of like, well, they're always been here and whatever, right? At least there's some working hypotheses that string a couple of things together that can kind of explain something, right?
Okay.
With this, I feel like there's no strings of things together. There's just these like, well, we're going to do this, and if it moves, then it must be something here. Like,
well,
do you know what I mean?
Sure, but I think that's the difference between what we're about to do, which is essentially data capturing evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then going, oh, okay, so this happened, doesn't necessarily mean it proves anything. I mean, obviously there could be electromagnetic currents caused by any number of things in there that could produce results.
Sure. And if you pick up nothing, it just means that doesn't mean that there's not any spirits there.
Yeah.
It means there's no spirits there at the time we were there, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm just, again, thinking back to the conversation that I had with Richard a few weeks ago, and if working hypothesis sounds too cut and dry, but if there's this belief that the spirit's around all the time and we're calling on them respectfully to come and give us some communication, that's essentially what we're doing. And that's kind of all we're doing.
Okay, so even that, right?
Yeah.
To communicate requires interpretation of a question.
Yes.
Some sort of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And a reply.
Right.
Right? So are we thinking that a magnetized energy of a soul that's passed has consciousness enough for it to be able to interpret?
Well, if we're to say that there's advanced consciousnesses that don't necessarily disappear after death, or even if there's consciousnesses that have maybe never found form that we can communicate, then we can potentially communicate with them. These methods of communication are not necessarily the most reliable.
Think of what's happened with flight in 120 years. Like, we're not still going around with like wings on our arms jumping off buildings thinking we can fly, right? So there's been pretty much zero development in any kind of measuring device of any kind to be able to try and pick up any of these things.
Agree. I feel like some of these things seem to be super archaic. Is it just a matter of, because it's fallen into this domain of what would seem to be a kind of a pseudoscience because of all of the stigma around it, that there just hasn't been the kind of experimentation that would be afforded
Maybe.
Other types of inquiry?
Usually it's a money thing. Like, obviously, if 120 years ago, if you go, all right, do a bit of research, you'll be able to fly. Someone's gone, we can make a lot of money out of that.
Look, at the end of the day, we are going up the coast in a few weeks, and I think nothing can replace the fact of us physically having that experience there. And I think that's what I'm going to rely on most is, you know, my sensations and all of those kind of things. I think all the things that Ty's described are tools to assist us. We just kind of go in with an open mind, I think. And you get
I am going with an open mind.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're not. Yeah.
I just have, like, unfortunately with all of these things, like there's just all of these questions around all of these. Every part of it has just a multitude of questions that I'm not sure have been answered to any satisfactory degree.
We know for a fact that science and any stream of inquiry is always influenced by certain
commercial interests.
Things. Commercial interests, government interests, information interests, security interests, etc., etc. All I'm proposing in this case, and I don't know who it is or why they would necessarily do this, but it's been much easier for scientists potentially to research things that are part of a more palatable agenda than is the afterlife.
For sure.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. So next up, we have our amazing listener story.
We're gonna keep going.
I'm gonna play. I
was only going to give you 45 minutes.
Yeah, you don't have to comment on this. I just think it's a really fascinating story, and it's we have also geographically digressed because this was obviously supposed to be a study of local areas. We're now talking about the Sunshine Coast, and this lovely listener who sent in a story is from New South Wales.
Mm-hmm.
Hi Agnes, I heard you on the ABC radio about a week ago and I thought you might find our family experience some years back quite interesting. Firstly, none of our family are religious or practice religion. From memory, this strange event occurred around 1994-95 and involved two families at different addresses and 4 people, including 2 external people, they were police officers. Furthermore, my father had passed away in 1993. Our family lived in a 2-storey house in Woy Woy, New South Wales. Upstairs there were 2 bedrooms, a large living area. Downstairs there were another 3 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen, dining room, bathroom, laundry and toilet. The other family involved in this strange experience was my nephew, my sister's son, and his partner, who lived in a cabin approximately 2 kilometres away in Umina, New South Wales. On a Saturday night, a few hours after dinner, it was around about 9:30pm, my wife was downstairs in the kitchen cleaning up, and my daughter, who was about 14 at the time, was upstairs in a bedroom asleep. I was in the upstairs living room watching TV at the time. All of a sudden, my wife yelled out, "Something just stroked the back of my head and down to my shoulders." I replied, "It's probably just a muscle spasm." My wife said quite firmly, "I'm not joking, I know the difference." So I got up and went downstairs to the kitchen and wasn't sure what to say or do, but being there might offer some comfort. About a minute later, we both heard a primal scream from upstairs and my daughter came out of a bedroom, jumped over the banister instead of coming down the stairs and landed in the middle of the kitchen, crying and shaking. She said, "It just touched me. It just patted my stomach." Well, this freaked us all out. There's 2 very abnormal things just happened where there was absolutely no logical answer. My daughter wanted out of the house. My wife was shaking. I was completely confused. As being a professional engineer, there was no logic to what just happened and I could not calm them down. So after a few minutes, I decided to phone Woy Woy Police Station and tell them what happened and maybe they could drop by and offer some moral support. The response was, at the time, "What drugs are you on?" I told them I was a professional engineer, I don't take drugs, and what just happened is no bullshit. They said, "We'll note it in the register," so I assumed nothing would happen. About 20 minutes later, we heard a knock on the front door. I looked out the window and saw a police patrol car had pulled up in our driveway, and we were all downstairs at the time in the living room. I said, "Appreciate you guys coming to our house," and one officer said to the other, "Do you smell that?" And the other officer said, "Sure can." I said, "What can you smell?" They didn't answer my question. They said, "Can we come in?" And I said, "Yes." One officer started asking questions while the other walked into the living room and said, "It's not in here." Then he walked into the kitchen where my wife originally had been when she yelled out and said, "It's very strong in here." He then went upstairs and said, "I can still smell it." He entered my son's bedroom upstairs and said, "It's not in this bedroom." He then walked into my daughter's bedroom and said, "It's very strong in here also." So I asked, "What can you smell?" As we couldn't smell anything. The reply came as a bit of a shock. The smell of a morgue. We have to go to the morgue in hospitals now and then as part of our work, and trust me, once you witness the smell, you don't forget it. It's very strange. The officers left and we were somewhat relieved, but still confused by this weird event. The next morning I phoned my sister, who lived nearby in Pomona, and told her what happened at our house, and she said, "Well, you think that's strange. Have I got something to add to that about what happened at her son's place?" She told me that around 10:30 p.m, my nephew was in bed, half asleep, when he felt a presence in the room. He looked up and saw an image of my father, his grandfather, who had passed away about a year before, who came over, gave him a gentle hug and said, "Hi, chump," which was his nickname. He was so certain it was my father, especially when he called him chump. My sister then told me that she had received a phone call earlier from our cousin informing her that Uncle Bub had passed away on Saturday. We do not have any logical answers to what we all witnessed, and we can only assume that my father who'd passed away, spirit, had returned to help Uncle Bub's spirit transition from the physical world to wherever. Anyway, I hope you find this interesting.
If listeners do want to send in stories, I think we are going to dedicate a segment to that.
Let's see how many you get.
agnes.finnie.podcast.
Is that being too pessimistic?
agnes.finnie.podcast@gmail.com.
You'll get thousands, darling, and it will be a regular part of the podcast.
You're becoming so sceptical. I don't even know if there's place for you on. I thought you were starting to turn a corner. But now you're just pissing me off.
I'm the backbone of this goddamn podcast.
Anyway, next episode, I meet with Richard, psychic friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
He is going to give me some insights from that point of view on our investigation. Stop grinning at me from the other side of the cupboard. It's really creepy.
Am I finished?
Yeah, you're finished.
Wonderful.
Let's wrap it up.